Venerable René's been spotlighted, so it should be easy.
Oh, I see him now.
Good.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. All right.
Sorry, I can't. I see a black face. Sorry, I can't
Who's-
see Venerable René as well.
Who are you?
Josephine. If I put everyone together on the screen, I can see everybody. But we've just put alone, I couldn't see you right singly.
If you go to the top right of your screen, you can choose the view, and you can choose.
Yeah,
speak.
I know. If I put just Venerable René spotlighted, I can't see him at all. But if I put everybody, I can see him.
Well, I'm happy to share the screen with other people.
Let me see. Maybe I do it. No, I can't see. Yeah, sorry. How come it's not happened first time?
Mhm.
Okay, don't worry. I just put the whole everybody on the screen.
Okay.
It's just go blank. I don't know, black. Blackout. No. Interesting.
All right. So we're going to start. So we all have taken a little bit time out of what we normally do to join this session. So that shows that we have some spiritual interest, and that interest is quite strong, since we are able to renounce quite some other activities to join this class. So that's wonderful. So it's something we have to rejoice in. Please turn down. Please turn off your microphone so that we don't hear coughing and so forth. So in Buddhism, the motivation why we do something is important. So at the beginning, we try to look our life from a bigger perspective. So from Buddhist point of view, we are born in this life, and we spend a certain amount of time on this earth, and we try to do something constructive for ourselves and others. And then we move on to next life. And after that life to another one, and so on forever. So what determines where we're going to be reborn and what kind of life we're going to have depends on our actions, on our thoughts, our speech, and our deeds. So the first level of Dharma is really to try to take care of one's karma and try to keep as well as we can the 3 types of vows that we have taken. And at least being aware that we have those vows, and from time to time remind ourselves which vows we have taken. So usually this is done if we recite the long succession Guru Yoga, because there Lama Tsongkhapa expressly put the vows, the root vows, the tantric vows and the root bodhisattva vows. And there, for example, there's a section about the pratimoksha vows that the monks can add their monk vows. But there also the lay people can add their vows they have taken, their refuge vows. So they can write them there in to remind themselves they have taken those vows. Because over the years, sometimes we tend to forget the vows we have. So to remind ourselves, oh, I've taken these vows, and by keeping these vows every moment, by not doing that action, the karma, the positive karma is multiplied by two, second by second. So we create incredible virtue simply by keeping our vows. And then if we notice that we have broken some vows or our conduct degenerates due to circumstances, so to purify, to apply the four opponent powers. So, and then retake the bodhisattva and tantric vows as often as we can. And thereby, we live with this peace of mind that, oh, I'm doing quite well. I'm taking care of my karma, so I have no, even though I don't look forward for next life or for death, actually I'm quite ready, I have no regret. So that's a good state of mind to live with. The next state of mind is having this determination, wanting to become free from our mental affliction and its root cause, the belief in an enhanced existent I. By realizing that all the problems we have in life come from those roots. So sometimes one becomes quite complacent because our life might be quite comfortable now. And sense pleasure are quite enticing. So sometimes we are a little bit like gods, we have too much pleasure, and then the truth of dharma goes a little bit in the back burner or is less urgent. So to meditate on the suffering nature of cyclic existence, either with the 3 forms of suffering, the 6 or the 8, to remind ourselves, this is not a beautiful park. And thereby to have this aspiration to become free and try to live with that aspiration as much as we can in everyday life. And then the 3rd level of motivation is to realize, like myself, I'm bound by cyclic existence, by suffering, so are all our dear mother living beings. So is my brother, my father, my partner, my children. The poor people on the planet, the rich people on the planet, the famous, the anonymous, everyone is the same. Just wanting to be happy. Each one has the potential to become happy. Each one has the Buddha nature. And how can I be happy myself as long as other beings are not happy? So I make it my aim, my task to lead all living beings to enlightenment. So from the heart, we try to induce this state of mind. I will never give up until all living beings are free and reach enlightenment. And in order to bring this about, I have to tame my mind. I have to improve my mind. And in this class, we're doing so by getting blessing through Guru Yoga, purifying our mind, accumulating merit. And then based on recognizing the clear and knowing nature of our mind, we try to develop a certain level of mental stability. So usually when one begins to work on mental stability, we feel that we have even more thought than before. So the first sign that we actually start meditating is that we feel overwhelmed by all the thought we have. We didn't know we had so many thoughts. So that's the first level of calm abiding. We realize, oh, I have all these distractions, all this unsubdued mind. And as we progress, so then there are less and less thoughts that distracts us. And at the end, when we do calm abiding, there's no more thoughts distracting us. We can rest on any object we want and stay there calmly without effort. So that being the nature of the mind, that being emptiness, that being bodhicitta, whatever we put our attention to, we can remain there. So if we do deity yoga, so we have the clear appearance of ourselves as the deity, and we can effortlessly remain there. So to improve our skill in mental stability is important, because we realized without mental stability, even though we know a lot about dharma, we cannot really penetrate. We cannot really digest what we know. So when we meditate, so we are all familiarized with analytical meditation, where you cultivate a stream of thought to bring about a certain state of mind. We all know meditation on prayer, sadhanas, where we follow a text, a stream of visualization, and then recite mantra. And we also meditate on Guru Yoga, sometimes analytically, while thinking about the quality of the Guru and the kindness and how he has changed our life to bring about a certain emotion. Then we are used to recite mantra and receive blessing. So all these practice get enhanced if we have a certain level of mental stability. So therefore, to make a little bit effort to train regularly in calm abiding is good for all our other practices. So even though a certain level of peace is attained by calm abiding, because due to calm abiding, you can stop the mental affliction temporarily, and different level of intuition or clairvoyance are possible due to calm abiding. For us, the main purpose is mainly to enhance all our other practice. You see, if you have a calm and stable mind, all your other meditation become enhanced. So, particularly if one wants to realize emptiness, we know that even though you have a correct mental image of emptiness, you cannot go from the path of accumulation to the path of to the path of preparation without having calm abiding. So to progress, to go to the great path of accumulation, you need actually to have a stable mind. So the first obstacle to develop calm abiding is not wanting to do so, not taking time to meditate on calm abiding, or procrastinating, being lazy. So the antidote to those obstacles to calm abiding is to remember the benefit of having a calm and stable mind along the thought that I just mentioned. And then the second obstacle to calm abiding is the mind that our mind at the beginning is very unruly. So either it follows distraction or it falls asleep. Have you noticed sometimes you want to meditate and you're completely awake, but as soon as you try to meditate, you fall asleep or your mind becomes very dull, very heavy. So these are the two first obstacles to calm abiding: the mind that gets distracted or the mind that becomes dull. So these are the two gross forms of obstacle. And how do you remove those? Is by constantly bringing the mind back. So on remembering the advantage of calm abiding and constantly bringing the mind back onto your object of attention, and try to extend the duration of not losing that object. And when the mind goes away, you become aware through introspection and you are able to bring it back onto the object. And like that, gradually, you're able to stay longer and longer on the object without becoming distracted. And when the mind is distracted, you can bring it back onto the object quicker and quicker. So that's how you go from level 1 to level 4 of calm abiding. So at level 1, you actually distracted by following thought or falling asleep or being dull more than half of the time. So let's say you meditate for 15 minutes. Actually, during 7 minutes, your mind is not focused on the object properly. So you start realizing, wow, what kind of mind do I have? How can I ever meditate with a mind like that? So how do you go from level 1 to level 2 is to remind yourself, oh, I have to improve my mental stability. How can I ever be happy with a wild mind like that? How can all my meditation ever be successful if I meditate with a wild mind like that? So, and then by gaining a certain discipline to meditate every day. So you say, look, one part of my meditation should be calm abiding because of all these benefit. So you make it like a commitment every day to meditate on calm abiding. So either as a separate session or you include it in your commitment. You know, you at some point you stop and you do calm abiding. And by doing so in a constant, regularly, you know, better every day, you know, without ever not doing it. So like that, you go from level 1 to level 2. And at level 2, you spend more time. If you meditate 15 minutes, so you spend more than 7 minutes on the object. So you spend more time on the object than not on the object. So the balance has changed. You're able to stay longer on the object than being distracted. Even though there's still a lot of distraction and you need a lot of effort. And as you keep on practicing, so then your mind is able to stay on the object most of the time. And sometimes you have distraction, and when distraction arises, you notice it straight away and you're able to bring the mind back. So your distractions are not very long. A few seconds, you're able to bring the mind back onto the object. So there at that level, let's say if you meditate 15 minutes on calm abiding, you maybe stay 12 or 13 minutes on the object, and just from time to time, you lose it and you're able to bring it back. And as you keep on practicing, you get to the level 4. And at the level 4, you're able the whole time to stay on the object with one part of your mind. So there you start noticing something new. You can while doing calm abiding, you can be multitasking. So one part of your mind stays on the object and another part has subliminal thoughts. So at level 4, if you decide to meditate for 15 minutes, with one part of the mind, you never lose the object. Whereas before you would lose the object, now you don't lose the object anymore. But now you notice something new that was there before, but because you had gross distraction and gross dullness, you didn't notice it. So now you start noticing that while one part of your mind is always on the object, you still have subliminal thought, you have subtle distraction, and you have subtle dullness, where your mind, although the mind is on the object, it doesn't hold the mind very sharply or very clearly. It kind of is complacent and relax a bit, and it relaxes a bit too much, and it loses the clarity of the object. So at level 4, what happened, the main obstacle that happened is that because now you don't lose the object anymore, right? So you decide to meditate 15 minutes or 20 minutes or half hour, you're able to keep your mind on the object for that duration of time. Whereas before you lose it, you know, before you would get distracted and moved away from the object and you had to bring it back. Now that doesn't happen anymore. One part of your mind can stay on the object continuously. So the power of your mindfulness of not forgetting the object, that power of your mind has become quite strong. It's so strong that it overpowers the mind that wants to be distracted. And it overpowers the mind that wants to fall asleep. So what happens at this stage is you become complacent. You say, oh, now I can meditate and I can stay on the object for as much as I want. So what happened, this little complacence makes that subtle dullness becomes to the forefront. So that subtle dullness at that stage becomes your main obstacle. So if you want to go from level 4 to level 5, you have to be on the lookout of this subtle dullness. And so how you do that is that you increase the sharpness of you holding onto the object. You make the mind more crisp, clearer, brighter. And that will lead you to the level 5, where for the first time you will experience a certain pleasure from meditation. So at level 5, you start experiencing a bliss or a pleasure that arises from calm abiding. So there's a well-being when you reach level 5 and you meditate. So at level 5, the problem that arises is that at level 4, you were the lookout for subtle dullness, and you made your mind sharper, clearer. So you increase the intensity of you holding on the object. So then you bounce to the other side. So subtle excitement becomes more vivid, right? So you bounce to the other side. So at level 5, you have to be at the lookout of subtle excitement. So subtle subliminal thoughts, right? So because you hold the object tighter, so it produces this bubbling up of subliminal thought. So there you have to learn how to decrease a little bit the intensity of you holding the object, right? So you have to find the middle way between going to the side of being too loose, where subtle dullness arises, you lose the clarity of the object, and holding the object too tightly, where subliminal thought arises. So at level 5, you start learning that there's a middle ground between these two. And that's all within the context of never losing the object anymore. You know, so from level 4 on, you don't lose the object anymore, but still subliminal thought and subliminal dullness arise. So at level 5, you start learning that to find a middle way between subliminal thought and subliminal dullness. And like that, by finding the middle way, you get to level 6. So at level 6, you start being able to recognize this middle ground between subtle dullness and subtle excitement. And you're able to stay longer and longer in this middle ground between subtle dullness and subtle excitement. So here, the mind has to become much sharper, you see, to recognize subtle excitement, subtle dullness, and find the middle ground. So at level 7, you're able to stay most of the time in this middle ground. You still have to be at the outlook of subtle dullness and subtle excitement, but you're able, when you recognize them, to bring the mind back into the middle and not being affected too much by subtle dullness and subtle excitement. And as you persevere, so you get to level 8, where only you need to have a little effort at the beginning of the session. So at the beginning of the session, it's almost like you go through level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then you go to level 8. So at the level 8, you have to make a little effort to get to the right level of mental abiding. So there's no more gross distractions, gross thinking, And then there's no more subtle thinking and subtle excitement, and you're able to stay in that flat line where there's no more subtle thought and subtle dullness. And then you're able to stay in that state for as long as you kind of wish, with less and less effort. And as you continue progressing in calm abiding, so you reach level 9, where as soon as you sit down, you're able to enter the state of mind where there's no more subtle dullness and subtle excitement. So during the whole session, you're able to stay without subtle excitement and subtle dullness. And you can stay in that state longer and longer and longer. And then the impure wind leaves your body, and your mind becomes very supple and very clear, very blissful. So then one reached a state that's called calm abiding. And then one uses this calm abiding to gain all the Lamrim realization to a new level. So from level 4, let's say from level 5, the pleasure you get from meditation increase. At level 6, the pleasure is greater than level 5, level 7 greater than level 6, and so on. So the bliss, the pleasure from calm abiding increase from level 5 onwards. So you realize to have a stable mind is actually very pleasurable. It's like, you're near a body of water, a lake or a pond. So when there's wind, there's all this refraction at the surface, right? But when the water is calm, the water it's so peaceful, and it reflects, it mirrors whatever appears in the sky, whether the clouds or the trees around. Everything is reflected very clearly. And the water is so peaceful, so calm to look at. So it's same thing when the mind develops a level of mental stability. It's so calm, so clear, so peaceful, so comfortable. And then also when you have questions, if you just ask the question, it's a little bit like you're in front of a mirror, like Palden Lamo Lake, so some kind of vision arise out of the lake. So when you watch your mind, when your mind is calm and you have a question, so the intuition, comes from the clarity of your mind. So you have less doubt, less inner conflict, because you trust the purity of your mind. And as we know from the purity of our mind, from the clear light nature of our mind, we are one with the Buddhas, we are one with the Gurus. So where the Gurus speak to us, or where the deities speak to us, the Buddha teacher, is to our clear light nature of our mind. And where we can listen to that is in the silence of our mind. So like that, our intuition becomes clearer. So when you meditate on calm abiding, it is good to know which level you are at, whether 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or so forth. Because at each level, there's a particular problem and a particular antidote. So at level 1, you're mostly distracted. So there you have mostly to rely on reminding the benefit of developing a calm mind and to persevere, to put strong effort of focusing on the object and not letting it go, bringing the mind back. So there's a lot of effort. So there's not much pleasure in meditating on calm abiding because the mind is so wild. But by persevering, you get to level 2. And there, level 2, you have less distraction at level 1. So you see that, oh, I have made some progress, some improvement. So you still keep on remembering the benefit of calm abiding, and you keep on persevering, in your session, your discipline. You try to improve your discipline of doing session, and the power of your mindfulness of not forgetting the object becomes stronger. That quality of the mind, and also your introspection becomes stronger. That notice when the mind moves away and you bring it back. So like that, by increasing the power of your mindfulness and your introspection, so you get to level 3, where as soon as the mind gets distracted, you're able to bring it back. So there, the power of your mindfulness and vigilance or introspection has become quite strong. And you're able to stay on the object most of the time, only with little distraction. So by persevering, then your mindfulness becomes so strong that you cannot lose the object anymore. And your introspection has become so strong that you're able to keep the mind on the object at level 4. So I think there's a threshold at level 4 when one part of your mind doesn't experience any more gross distraction and gross dullness. That's a level achievement. You see, when you reach level 4. And then there's another level of achievement, which is level 7 or 8, where you don't have any more subtle distraction and subtle excitement. So these are 2 thresholds that one reaches. So this explanation, Lama Zopa Rinpoche says the main text, the text which has the clearest explanation of how to develop calma abiding is found in Pabonka, Liberation in the Palm of Your Hand. So for those which are interested in that and those meditation, they should read that text. It has the clearest explanation of the 9th stage and how you move from one to the next and how to recognize them clearly. So like that. Even though most big lamrim have an explanation of how to develop calm abiding. Rinpoche, whilst he mentioned that, he said, while speaking with other yogis, that Tingen Lamrimpa and again Wangdu and all these yogis in Dharamsala, they praised the text from Pabonka as the clearest explanation. So developing calm abiding is not just sitting there and hoping that your concentration improve. It's a method, it's a science, right? There's a method, and by knowing the method, by knowing how to go about it, you can quite make progress. Anybody can make progress. It's not difficult. No, it's actually in a way simpler because there's only 2-3 things to develop. One is the wish to develop calm abiding, to have this, to remove, how to say, procrastinating or a laziness or things like that. And then the second power you develop is that of sustained attention or mindfulness, of not forgetting the object. And then the third power you develop is that of introspection. So that's the judge, the part of your mind, 10% of your mind that watches the quality of your attention, that watches whether you get distracted or not, whether there's dullness or not. First, the gross level, and then the subtle level is that part of your mind that is aware that there's subtle bubbling up of thought or subtle dullness, like that. And then later on, the fourth power you developed is the power of non-application. So later on, when your mind is able to stay calmly on the object, so you stop interfering. You see, before one would tighten up the mind or loosen up the mind, tighten up the mind, loosen up the mind, to find this middle ground between subtle bubbling up thought and subtle dullness. Someone would always adjust the mind. But at some point, you become so addicted to adjusting the mind, and you don't need anymore. You're able to remain clearly on the object without any distraction or dullness. So there you have to stop adjusting, So by doing so, we can make progress in calm abiding. And then whenever you meditate on other things, on the lamrim or emptiness and bodhicitta or deity, that level of calm abiding you have reached, you can use in those other meditation. So now in the context of Mahamudra, in the Gelug Kagyu tradition of Mahamudra, it explains how to develop calm abiding based on the nature of the mind, the clear and knowing nature of the mind. So the text goes, so you meditate on the conventional nature of the mind until you have calm abiding. So it explains, you see, to persevere, and once you achieve calm abiding, then you meditate analytically on the ultimate nature of the I and the mind. So that's how the text explains. So for us, of course, if we have to wait until we have calm abiding to meditate on the ultimate nature of things, we might never reach there. So what I suggest and what I do is usually to meditate on calm abiding for, let's say, if you meditate 15 minutes on Mahamudra, so you do 10 minutes on calm abiding, and the last 5 minutes you meditate on the ultimate nature. You see, so you combine, you do calm abiding, and then you put imprints on the ultimate nature of the I and mind. So you do some emptiness at the end of calm abiding. So what I'm trying to convey is that in our tradition, what we do mostly analytical meditation and sadhanas and prayers and things like that. So one doesn't put much emphasis on calm abiding. And one leaves that for the yogis and the people who, which do long retreat and things like that. My feeling is that, why is that so? Is that I'm not so sure, because in other tradition like the Zen tradition or Kagyu or other tradition, the emphasis on calm abiding is much bigger. So in the Gelugpa, in our tradition, is not so much emphasis. So His Holiness made the remark a few times. So you develop a certain level of calm abiding by being mindful of your vows, right? So he said, as a monk, you have 365 vows. So by being constantly aware of your vows and not aware of your karma, so you develop a certain level of mindfulness of not forgetting the object by being mindful of your ethic in everyday life. And I think recently I spoke with the Lama, and he says, actually, when you do the sadhana, so if you do the sadhana and you make the stream of prayer and stream of visualization while constantly bringing back your mindfulness, you see, an introspection to see whether you actually do the visualization as described. So you develop a certain level of calm abiding doing that by doing the sadhana without distraction and so forth. And then normally in a sadhana, when you reach before the recitation of mantra, so there you're supposed to stop and meditate on clarity of the visualization and divine pride. So in the many commentaries, they say actually meditating on calm abiding, on clear appearance and divine pride is more important than the recitation of mantra. So it says you have to stop there, and when you're tired of calm abiding, then you recite the mantra. Whereas for us, because we are short on time and we do our commitment, so we read the thing, the sadhana, and then we recite the mantra, and you see, we don't stop there. And also His Holiness Dalai Lama, I think I mentioned it last time, so during puja, usually one doesn't stop much. So he advised the monks in the big monastery, when they do a sadhana and they reach the experience of clear light, the death absorption, to stop there 15 or 20 minutes. And I think what I've heard is that many monasteries now include that. So I think if you make a strategy to work on calm abiding, see, the problem is we do it for a while and then we give up. And then again, we do it for a little while and we give up. And like that, we don't really make progress. We stay at the same level. So if you make really an effort to include it in your daily ritual, your daily practice, definitely you can make progress. And you don't need to go into long retreat to get a great level of calm abiding. And also another thing you will notice if you meditate on calm abiding, you become much more aware in what you do in everyday life. You start realizing what makes it worse, what distract, what in your behavior in everyday life is not conducive for calm abiding, and what you do in everyday life that is conducive or is in harmony with calm abiding. So you notice very clearly that keeping your vows and taking care of your karma is the best things you can do to improve your calm abiding. So based on ethic, you start realizing from your experience that the ethic is the base for calm abiding. So you notice, oh, if I don't take care of my karma, I don't purify my negative karma, it creates this turbulence in my mind, this unease, and this then is reflected in my calm abiding meditation. So your calm abiding meditation actually is like a mirror that shows, that reflects your everyday life. You know, you see, it shows you how you fare with your karma. You know, how wholesome your life is, because when your life is wholesome, your mind is at peace, and calm abiding goes well. But if you have a lot of conflict, you know, and a lot of worry and things like that, then calm abiding is difficult. So that, you know, I have to remove this conflict, I have to remove these worries. And then the best meditation to remove all that is to remember impermanence and death. You know, we have all these worries and concern because we think we're going to be here next year or next month or tomorrow. So by realizing, the fleeting nature of our life, and yes, death is not far away, it's just exhaling and not inhaling again. And that could happen. It happens to others. So in the Lamrim, there's many methods to remove these, how to say, this concern about this life or these worries and this conflict with other people. No. So we have to use those mind training to remove this obstacle to our development of calm abiding. All right, so we make 2-3 minutes break and then we start the session. Or if someone has a question, can ask now about that.
Hello. I have a
Yes.
question actually. First of all, thank you very much for your teaching.
Can you tell me your name, because I don't know who's speaking on the screen?
Yes, I'm going to raise my hand.
Okay.
So that's me.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your teaching, first of all. So I would like to know, how long would you recommend for beginners to meditate? Like how long should the sessions be?
I think for beginners, it's good to start with 20 minutes. So if one does, let's say, at the complete beginning, it says to do a session of 7 to 10 minutes. So, but that doesn't mean you have to stand up every 7 or 10 minutes. It means if you sit for 20 minutes, so you do 5 minutes and then you relax a little bit and you start again, kind of like that. But I would say 20 minutes is a good start, yeah, because it's not too long. You can include it in your daily life, and it's not too short that you don't actually make progress. So I think with 20 minutes, you can make progress if you do it every day, and then you do it at the period of the day where your mind is the clearest, where your daily life, you see, if you have worked the whole day and you do it in the evening, it's going to be very hard, because you're tired and you have all what you have done in the day that will come up in your mind. So usually it's better in the morning.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I have a question, René. Thank you. I'm Massimo.
Oh, hi, Massimo.
Hi. Listen, meditating on the conventional nature of the mind, because the object is not very clear, it's actually the thoughts are coming. I don't know, maybe some teachings, they say the state between one thought and the next, but it's not very easy. So my question is, what is the object in that case? How can I identify it, actually?
Yes. So in this context, you see, it's the awareness. What you try to focus is the awareness. So you're aware of the thought. So you see, how to put it? Yes, you see, you are aware of thoughts. So instead of looking at the object that you are aware of, you look at awareness itself. So that's one way. Another way that I found useful at the beginning is like in the Kagyu, they advise you to look at the space in front of you. So you look at the space and then you feel the space behind you, the space on your side. So you feel the space around your body, and then you imagine that space is similar than the space of your mind. So use the outer space to mirror your inner space. So that's another way that one can look at it. And then the other way is to remember the definition of the mind is that which is clear, clear in the sense that it doesn't obstruct anything from appearing in it, right? So it's clear, any thought, emotion, image can arise in it. So it's clear, and there's awareness. You cognize, those thoughts and those emotions. So it's clear and knowing. So by focusing on that space in which the thought arise, and you are aware of those thoughts, so that phenomena that is immaterial, this is what we call mind, and that's the object one tries to focus on. And then in the Kagyu, they use also thoughts like the mind, does it have a color, a shape, does it abide somewhere, and things like that. So you use those kind of thoughts to try to find that space. No. And then another approach is, where does the thought come from? Where do they abide and where do they go? So you watch the thought. Where does the thought come from? Where does that thought come from? And while it's here, where is the thought? Then where does it go? So those kind of looking at the mind, then gradually, you get a taste of the mind. But as you say, it's not easy because it's something that has no form, no color, no shape, doesn't abide anywhere. How do you focus on something that has no form? We saw how to say, familiarize us looking at form, at thought, at image. So yes, it's challenging to try to find that thing that has, that is immaterial, that has, yeah. I think also another meditation that helps is when you make the depth absorption and you go, because in depth absorption, your mind becomes more subtle. You see, even though at an imaginary level. So when you go to clear light, you somehow have forgotten the body, forgotten the gross thought and things like that. So that space of awareness is a little bit more subtle than the gross ordinary mind. So it's a little bit easier to feel the space-like nature of the mind in Dharmakaya than at the gross level of our mind. For those which have a little taste of that, it helps. Yeah. And then for those which find the nature of the mind as a difficult object for karma abide, for some people it's very easy. You ask them, meditate nature, of course, and for other people it's very difficult to find the mind, So for some people, using the deity or using the breath is easier to start with. I often find that people which find the mind difficult to find, it's good for a while to focus on the breath, So counting the breath or being inhaling, holding a little bit the breath, exhaling, holding a little bit the breath, inhaling, and so forth. And then once your mind is a little bit less distracted by focusing on the breath, you watch the awareness that watches the breath, and there is the mind. You see, so first you focus on the breath, and then you focus on the awareness of the breath. So the awareness, the breath is the mind, is the space of awareness. So I think this is a good bridge, at the beginning when especially, let's say, if you have worked the whole day and you start meditating and you have all these distracting thoughts. So to start by focusing on the breath, either in Tantra, one would use the 9-round breathing, or in Sutra where one would just being mindful of the breath. And then on that base, then being aware of the awareness of the breath, and there you would have the mind. All right, so maybe what's in the chat here? Okay. All right, so we start with Lama Tsongkhapa Guru Yoga. So we start with settling the mind by focusing on the breath. Or if we prefer the 9-round breathing, whichever method of watching the breath we like. Then we imagine our merit field with Shakyamuni Buddha in the center. And then analytically, we reflect on the quality of the merit field and why we take refuge is because we're still in cyclic existence and we want to become free. And because we care for all living beings and want to reach enlightenment for their sake. So you try to induce the mind, the state of mind of taking refuge. Oh, I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. By my virtuous actions of giving and so on, may I become a Buddha to benefit all beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. By my virtuous actions of giving and so on, may I become a Buddha to benefit all beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. By my virtuous actions of giving and so on, may I become a Buddha to benefit all beings. May all beings have equanimity, free of attachment and aversion. May all beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all beings be free of suffering and the causes of suffering. May all beings find good rebirth and the bliss of liberation. May the ground everywhere be pure, free of roughness and all flaws, soft as the palm of a child's hand, smooth as polished blue sapphire. May all space with Samantabhadra, clouds of offering be filled, offerings human and divine, both actual and imagined. O Namo Bhagavate Vajrasamadana Arade Samyak Samudaya Tayada Om Vajra Vajra Mahavidya Vajra Bodhicitta Vajra Bodhi Mama Savagama Avarana Vijudama So Namo Bhagavate Vajrasamadana Arade Samyak Samudaya Tayada Om Vajra Vajra Bodhicitta Vajra Bodhi Mama Savagama Avarana Vijudama Arade Samyak Sambudaya Ayana Om Vaja Vaja Mahavajra Mahadeja Mahavidya Vaja Mahabodhicitta Mahabodhi Manobhasankama Savagama Avarana Vijuda. You emanate on snow white cloud from the heart of Buddha Maitreya, Savior of 100 Devas joyful, Lusandra all-knowing King of Dharma, with you to her disciple, I beseech you, please come before me. In space on lion throne, lotus and moon, my kind Guru smiling with delight is the supreme field for my faithful mind. Please forever abide and teach us. You holy man knows all phenomena. You fluent speech, a sweet melody. For the years of fortunate being, you form resplendent with fame's glory. I prostrate to you who is meaningful to see, hear, and also bring to mind. Pure water and well-arranged flower, fragrant incense like perfume and more. Clouds of offering, real and imagined, I offer you supreme merit filled. Non-virtues of body, speech, and mind, transgressions of my precepts of committed sins beginning last time, all I confess deeply from my heart. In these times of degeneration, you made your life highly meaningful. Renounce all the worldly counsel, strive for knowledge and realization. In your extensive accomplishment, I rejoice deeply within my heart. Lama in Dharmakaya's clear sky, from clouds of wisdom and compassion, please rain down vast and profound Dharma upon us fortunate disciples. I dedicate all of these virtues to the Dharma, all living beings, and especially that the heart teaching of Lord Sandrapa remain forever. Is ground adorned with perfume and flowers, Mount Meru, for world, sun and moon. Imagine and offered as a pure land, may all beings enjoy this pearl. I send forth this jewel mandala to you, my precious gold. Nimetsewe te chen chen res, Drime kempe Wambo Jambe Nimbu Malu Jomze Songwe Nanchen Kepe Tugyen Tsongkap Lozan Daba Shabla Sowanem Chen the great treasure of objectless combustion. Manjushri Lord of stainless wisdom, Vajapani destroyer of Marazami, Tsongkhapa crown, jewel of Tibetan sage, Lozandaba, to you I pray. Magnificent and precious Root Guru, come to the lotus and moon above my head. Guide me with your great kindness and grant the realization of your holy body, speech, and mind. Magnificent and precious Root Guru, please rest on the lotus and moon at my heart. Guide me with your great kindness and stay with me always until I achieve enlightenment. So the phenomena that is aware of the thought. So you try to hold that and try to sustain the continuity. I'm going to do that for 7 minutes. Then for a minute or two, focus on the meditation. So there's no meditation without meditator. The meditation doesn't exist from his own side. It depends on the meditator. And there's no meditator without meditation. So the meditator doesn't exist from his own side. Depends on the meditation. So both don't exist inherently from their own side. They depend on each other. They are merely labeled meditation and merely labeled meditator. Oh, by the merit of body's virtue, may I become a Buddha and lead all living beings into that enlightened state. May the precious Bodhicitta, not yet born, arise and grow, and may that born not decline, but increase more. In a snowy mountain paradise, you're the source of all happiness and good. Powerful Tenzin Gyatso Chenrezig, please remain until samsara ends. Savior of the snowlands, teachings and being, you clarify the path that unifies emptiness and compassion. Lotus holder Tenzin Gyatso, may all your wishes be spontaneously fulfilled. Peerless teacher and assembly of the children of the victorious ones, Shravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas, victorious Losang, father and son, along with the lineage master, all the object of refuge of infinite lands, please bestow the virtue and goodness of accomplishing this prayer here and now. Holding and spreading the Muni's precious and complete teaching through explanation and practice, you wore the armor of patience that is never discouraged. Incomparable Venerable Guru, to you I make requests. While striving single-pointedly for the sake of the victorious one's teaching, the sole gateway through which all benefit and happiness emerge, and from other living beings you suddenly depart to peace. What a great loss. Nevertheless, to the undeceiving truth of the blessing of the ocean of the three jewels and the great wave of bodhicitta of the children of the victorious one, may the smile of a reincarnation swiftly beam in glory for fortunate disciple. All right, so this is the end of this session. However, if for 15 minutes, if some people have questions, then I'm happy to answer questions. And if you have some comment about calm abiding, you're welcome to.
If anyone has a question, they can raise their hand. Virtual hand.
I have a question by May. This is Curdy Wong.
Yeah, hi, Curti.
So when one begins to meditate and one may be aware of the breath, like the breathing, and at some point later, one may forget the breathing. Is there a certain stage of meditation when one completely stop breathing, and so they can go meditating for days or even months?
Yes, there's yes. In short, yes. In a little bit elaborate, there are two states where you stop breathing or almost stop breathing. One is with subtle dullness. So it's actually an obstacle where your mind is half asleep. So, and then your breathing kind of becomes very faint. And then there's another state where actually, like when you wind absorb into the central channel, then you can actually stop to breathe while in meditation on clear light or yes. So in advanced state of meditation, you can actually stop breathing, which is a good thing, but it can also happen due to subtle dullness, you know. So one has to distinguish the two phenomena. Yeah.
I see. And when when one stops breathing, are they actually breathing through their skin or the stomach? or
Yeah.
not breathing?
So there are different states, different experience, right? So one is that one stops the growth breathing, but there's still a subtle breathing, with the diaphragm. There's still a subtle breathing happening with the lungs, right? And then there are states where even that ceases, right? So a very advanced yogi can actually stop breathing, like in meditation on clear light. Yes.
Okay, thank you, Venerable René.
Yeah, you're welcome. Bill?
Thank you, Venerable. I have a question about continuing meditation practice. And that question is, I find myself coming to points where in my daily practice, I'm doing the things that I'm supposed to do, but I'm not feeling or experiencing insight or any kind of, it becomes kind of a habit more than a practice. And I'm not sure what to do about that.
Yes, I think it's a challenge, over the years when one practices. Sometimes one is more inspired, and sometimes it becomes like a routine that one does, like taking a shower or something. I think there's a few things that help to, get inspired again. One is to meet inspiring teacher. So during COVID, it was a bit difficult to meet teachers, but now I think things open up. So to go to teaching to enlightened beings like His Holiness Dalai Lama, like those which are in California, Kandrola is going to come. So meeting those kinds of beings, so somehow opens our heart again, and we get some inspiration and some juice. So, but while alone, so I think one thing that helps is to do prostration to the 35 Buddhas. So one is basically to clean the mind, to remove these veils. And then I think the second thing is to pray strongly to the Guru, to the Buddha. So to focus on that and receiving blessing. So I think this also helps. And then do some calm abiding, so that also helps, because somehow, we sit down and we start the prayer and we read through our prayers, and sometimes it can be quite flat. We just basically recite our commitments, and not much is happening. So I think this is a challenge many people have, in their daily life. And I think, whatever practice where you get a feel for, whether it's Tonglen or love, compassion, or emptiness of the eye. So whatever you have an experience from, so you do that meditation, Yeah, in each practice there are things that how to say it really depends what kind of practice we do, So for example, in Tantra, one thing that helps is making inner offerings. It generates bliss in the mind, or offering tsog. So these are practices in Tantra that kind of help. So in the sutra, I think is practice like calm abiding. Prayer to the Guru, reciting the Heart Sutra, or this kind, basically cleaning the mind of its inertia, of it, the mind that doesn't want to change. You know, it's difficult to shake. You know, sometimes it's And I think when really nothing goes, you see, one thing that says the best way to accumulate merit and to bring the mind in a position is to rejoice, you know, rejoice in all the other people's good deed, you know, rejoice in all your gurus' good action, and, you know, all the people that inspire you, to rejoice, to how to say, to think about their qualities and their kindness. So by, how to say, by thinking about their quality and kindness, somehow it awakes this quality in you, you know. So if you reflect, like being like His Holiness or Rinpoche, you know, the qualities, the joy you felt in their presence and things like, so you remember that, and then that awakes that feeling in you. Mhm.
Thank you.
Karen?
Thank you, Venerable. I hope you can hear me okay.
Yes, yes, yes.
Right. I have a question. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to ask it properly. In the calm abiding, whether one is focusing, whether the object is Buddha or whether it's the mind, it seems there's an experience that happens when one is focused on the object. And so, so when I'm focused on the Buddha, sometimes there's a great feeling of a blessing, which draws me into that feeling. And then when I'm thinking about focusing on the mind, sometimes there's just such a big expansiveness, or there's a calmness, or there's nothing there, but it feels very expansive space. So I think that my question is, what are we trying to, or we're trying to do nothing? I mean, what we're just being with that experience? I'm not sure that it doesn't fit with my understanding of the purpose of calm abiding. If we're getting led into an experience, I'm so confused.
Actually, calm abiding is doing nothing, but we are not able to do nothing. That's our problem. You see, if you would be able to do nothing, 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 nothing at all, not even subtle dullness or subtle excitement, you would have calm abiding. So what we try to do is remove the interference to calm abiding. You know? So if one wouldn't have any more interference, we would have calm abiding, right? So what you describe with the nature of the mind or with the Buddha is correct, you know, but are you able to sustain that effortlessly without any dullness and without any distraction? So that's the question. So calm abiding is when you're able to do that effortlessly without any interferences. You understand that, Karen? You see what I mean?
So what I'm hearing is that having the experience, but not trying to hold it or not trying to be overwhelmed with it. I'm not not being happy about it or not being sad about it, or
Yeah. When you focus on the Buddha, let's take that example. So are you not distracted? Are you able to stay there without any distraction?
no.
Okay, so what you try to work on is to remove these distractions so that you never get distracted. You see, the problem we have is that we get distracted, and that's the problem. If you could stay on the Buddha effortlessly without any distraction, you see, that would be fantastic. But we are not able to do that. And that's the obstacle to calm abiding.
Is the feeling of the blessing a distraction?
Yes and no. If you get attached to it, it becomes a distraction. If you want more bliss, it becomes a distraction. But bliss is just a sensation. So if you, it's a side effect of the practice, and it's okay. You know, it's if you create thought about it, wanting and not wanting, or liking and disliking. So that's the interference. It's not the sensation itself. The sensation itself is all right.
Thank you. I think I understand now.
Okay. Anyone else? Shankar?
Oh, I was just going to mention someone asked about inspiration when practice gets dull or flat. And what I've found, at least one thing that's helped me, is reading biographies of enlightened beings. So like, for example, Lama Tsongkhapa's biography by Thupten Jinpa, I found recently very, very inspiring.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Thank you, Shankar. Yes, it's true. Yeah. Okay, so I think we're going to stop here for today. Thank you, everyone, for your attention, and wishing you a nice week, and see you next week. Okay.
Thank you, Venerable René.
Thank you, Venerable René.
Thank you, Venerable.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very
Thank you so
much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.